So where does natural rights come from? Well, in 1140, we get something called the Decretum of Gratian. Gratian was a canon lawyer. He's interested in the law of the church. And what he's doing for the first time in 1140 is bringing together church law into one single compendium. Up to that point, church law had been a very scattered affair. There had been papal statements, ecumenical councils, local councils, biblical verses, penitentials, and they'd never actually been brought together and systematized into a coherent whole. So Gratian brings a lot of these sources together and publishes the Decretum. But when you look through this Decretum, naturally, if you're bringing together information from many sources, you may find contradictions, you may find duplications, whatever. And so there was an attempt to refine Gratian's collection by means of various commentaries and glosses on it. And when the commentators went through the Decretum, one thing they found was the repeated use of a term, jus naturale, which might variably be rendered as natural law or perhaps even an early form of natural right. And they went and they listed all the different ways in which this term had been used historically. But when they made that list, they added another meaning that you actually don't find in the ancient sources. The commentators on Gratian more or less invented it. And they said that one of these meanings of this term can be a subjective power enjoyed by individuals. So they are groping toward the idea of a natural right as being something that as individuals, each one of us is entitled to. Now, from the mid-12th century up to 1300, we start to see specific examples of natural rights being put into practice and being recognized. And so I give examples. One of the earliest rights that was recognized by people as being a natural right and therefore preceding any government and being something that no government could overturn was the right to appear and defend yourself against charges in a court of law. That's a natural right that you can't be deprived of by any prince. Likewise, over this 150-year period, we begin to see the development of the ideas of the rights of property, of self-defense, of marriage, as being a relationship entered into freely by free individuals exercising their freedom of choice, and still other areas. And these, again, being rights that inhere in the person as a person, and that people can't be deprived of by any political authority. So these are natural rights and cannot be taken away by the prince. Now, because they're talking about natural rights, they are not claiming, even though this is a deeply Christian milieu, they are not claiming that Christians enjoy these rights, but if you're not a Christian, we can, knock your block off or something. To the contrary, in the mid-13th century, Pope Innocent IV made a statement that future commentators referred to quite often. Innocent IV said, "Ownership, possession, and jurisdiction can belong to non-believers licitly. For these things were made not only for the faithful, but for every rational creature." Well, that is the very heart of the idea of natural rights. Now, we move forward several centuries to the age of discovery. By the way, if there's anybody out here who has bottled water that has not yet been opened, by the way, and consumed, if I could have a little liquidity, the good kind, that would be a huge help to me. But so any administrative people who happen to hear this, that'd be super helpful. In any event, we're going to move to the age of discovery. Particularly, we want to look at Spain's interaction with the natives of the New World. Because we all know, we hear all the time about the crimes of Columbus and the crimes of the conquistadors. But what we don't hear so much about is the crisis of conscience that this provoked in Spanish philosophers and theologians. Because in the 16th century, particularly around the University of Salamanca in Spain, you get Spanish philosophers asking the question, should we be acting this way? Should we be treating these natives like garbage? Or should we not recognize in them a common spark of humanity that would in turn demand of us that we extend to them the same rights that we would extend to our fellow Europeans? And what we find is that one of the silver linings amidst the demographic disaster that struck the natives of the New World was that it provoked this kind of soul-searching on the part of Spanish intellectuals. Thank you very much. Oh, baby, that's beautiful. And so it was at this moment that we start to hear the idea, really taking root of natural rights, of norms that govern the conduct of states, that states aren't just generators of powers, that states in fact have to be subject to the moral law. They're not morally autonomous. And so therefore the Spanish government can't just behave however it wishes toward these people. Francisco de Vitoria is considered to be one of the founders. Oh, I get another delivery of water. Great. No, I'll take it. Francisco de Vitoria is called one of the founders of international law. Now, we hear international law and we think boo, hiss. But all he means by it is not a United Nations. All he means by it is simply that there's a single standard of justice that applies to all people. Now, this is not a common thing to come across in the world, this emphasis on there being a single standard of justice that applies to me and to my people just as much as it applies to you and your people. I mean, we don't have any record of Attila the Hun sitting back and saying, gosh, should I really be treating people this way, or should I maybe stop these conquests in the name of natural rights? You know, I mean, he was asked once, how come you're looting and pillaging and stealing stuff from people? And he said, well, I don't know, because I want to take people's stuff. Like, why are you even asking me the question? Or likewise, the Harvard historian Samuel Eliot Morrison points out that a number of the North American tribes, Indian tribes, they had the same word for the people as they had for members of our tribe, and the same word for enemy or son of the she-dog or whatever they would apply to members of other tribes. Now, if you're going to think in that way, you're never going to reach a level at which you can make a universal statement about universally applicable natural rights. So this is a rarity in the history of the world. So Francisco de Vitoria argues that the natives are rational, so they possess the distinguishing characteristic of human beings, and they are created in God's image, and therefore they are entitled to the same treatment we would accord to our fellow Europeans. He says that they may not have their property taken from them. They may not be, in other words, expropriated on the grounds that they can't really be true owners. They're just stupid old natives. No, that's not right. He says to the contrary, the Aborigines undoubtedly have true dominion in both public and private matters, just like Christians, and neither their princes nor private persons could be despoiled of their property on the ground of their not being true owners. So they have the rights to property just the same way everyone else has. Domingo de Soto, his colleague, again insisted natural rights apply to and are enjoyed by all people. De Soto said, those who are in the grace of God are not a whit better off than the sinner or the pagan in what concerns natural rights. So this is by and large the opposite of what people think Christians believe. We Christians get to do things and we get to kill everybody else. That's really not what the mature late scholastics of 16th century University of Salamanca are saying. And they conclude, moreover, that the natural law, as St. Paul says in the Bible, is written on the human heart. We have a sense of what's right and wrong. We kind of know instinctively what's right and wrong. Sometimes this sense needs to be refined or to some degree corrected, but we have a basic sense of right and wrong. And because we all possess this, and this is something that brutes do not possess, an aardvark doesn't have an internal sense of moral right and wrong, but human beings do, this therefore links us all in a kind of sublime mystical equality, because we all possess this ability to reflect on our actions in light of universal principles written on our hearts. This is something that belongs only to Homo sapiens, not to anyone else. And on these grounds, again, this basis of equality and this idea that human beings enjoy a special dignity for this reason, and because they enjoy rationality, they have a certain equality that therefore means that no one of us has any innate particular power to exercise arbitrary power over anybody else. We all have a certain equality on these grounds.